Bring to the floor, Miss Ginnie Strickland Sands.
Good evening, everybody. In case you didn't know it, 2 days from today, it's Grandparents' Day.
Oh, yeah! Whoa! Yeah!
So in honor of the life lessons that I learned from my Granny Turner, I want to tell you about her life. On the surface of it, Granny Turner was a soft-spoken, sweet-smiling, mild-mannered Southern woman. But underneath, there was a strength in her that enabled her to get whatever she wanted, whenever she wanted it. Granny was a fine cook, and between her sweet talk and her wonderful savory mincemeat pie, she could talk anybody into anything almost all the time. One night, Granny Turner and Pops Turner were sitting at home at the end of the day, talking about the events of the day and how the crops were doing and what the weather looked like, when all of a sudden there came a sound, a ruckus from the hen house. And Granny and Pops knew that once again the wolf had invaded the hen house. Pops jumped up out of his chair, ran to the fireplace, reached over the mantel, grabbed his gun, ran for the door, and there was Granny, standing there, blocking the door. Oh no, Pops, you put that gun back up where it belongs, I'll handle that wolf. So Pops had a habit of doing what Granny told him. He sat back, he put the gun back over the mantel. He sat back in his chair, leaned back, and watched to see just how Granny planned to handle this. Granny had been cooking a mincemeat pie. She went over to the oven. She pulled that pie out of the oven. She went out into the yard. She sat down in the middle of the yard. She set that mincemeat pie down on the ground right in front of her. And the savory smell wafted across the yard towards the hen house. And pretty soon, the wolf came sneaking out of the hen house to see what that smell was, just what was going on. He saw Granny sitting there. He saw the pie sitting there. He sort of hesitated. Granny started talking to him. Granny said, "Now, Mr. Wolf, you and I don't need to be on opposite sides of the fence. You and I can be friends." He tilted his head this way, he tilted his head that way, and he was just overcome by the smell of that savory mincemeat pie. So he slunk up a little closer, a little closer. Was Granny scared? Nah, Granny was scared of nothing. He snuck up to that pie, he sniffed that pie, he took a lick of that pie, he nibbled a bite of that pie, and then, like a hungry, ravenous wolf is wont to do, he swallowed that pie in one huge gulp, put his head down in Granny's lap, went to sleep. And from that moment on, Granny and that wild wolf were lifelong companions and friends. Now, another time, Granny was out in the field, walking around with a baby in her arm. It was a fine spring day. The sky was blue, the clouds were floating by, and she was talking to this little baby and pointing out the clouds and the flowers and the birds and the grass. And it was just a peaceful communing between a grandmother and a grandchild. But the problem is, she was wandering around in the field where she and Pops kept Billy, the old goat. And it was springtime. And a billy goat in the springtime gets kind of territorial. And he did not like the fact that Granny was walking around in his field, pointing to his grass, his flowers, his trees, his clouds. He put his head down, he started snorting and pawing at the ground, took off running at Granny. She saw him coming, she had a baby in her arms, what was she gonna do? She turned around and she ran lickety-split towards the fence. She jumped over the fence, still holding the baby, turned around, took a look at that goat. He's looking at her, she's looking at him. She's humiliated that her own goat made her run and jump over the fence. So Granny gives that goat the evil eye. Now, do you know about the evil eye? The evil eye is a terrible thing to see. She gave that goat the evil eye, and he fell over dead on the spot. And Granny had goat meat in her stew pot that night. Now most of the time, Granny could get what she wanted with sweet talking or mincemeat pie, and in a worst case scenario, the evil eye was her last weapon. And as a result, Pops generally yielded to whatever Granny wanted. He was not a dumb man. But there was one time when they started fussing and feuding and fighting and arguing and picking at each other, and the whole family was up in anxiety because this had never happened before. And the argument went on and on and on for weeks. And the problem was about the arrangement of the bedroom furniture. Now the situation was, they lived in a little farmhouse, and the bedroom just had one window, and the bed was up under the window, because Pops liked to open the window at night, and listen to the breeze coming over the cornfield, and listen to the crickets, and it was lulled him to sleep. But the problem was that the window faced east, and that meant the morning sun woke Granny up a lot sooner than she really preferred to wake up in the morning. And she wanted to move the bed to the other side of the room, and Pops refused. Well, one night, they were lying in bed, and Pops was sound asleep, snoring. Granny was so mad she couldn't sleep. She had her arms down by her side, and she was just trying to be still, and she was trying to be calm. She was trying to count sheep. And she started listening to the breeze coming over the cornfield, listening to the crickets chirp. And suddenly she detected a new sound, kind of like a freight train. Well, they were in railroad tracks near their house, and it got louder and closer. And when you live out in the country and you're not close to a railroad track, and you hear something that sounds kind of like a freight train, you know it's a tornado coming. Pops was sound asleep. Granny got up, jumped up, ran out into the yard just like she had to deal with the wolf, looked up into the sky. The sky was kind of this green glow, and she could see this tornado coming to the house, spinning and spinning and spinning. Well, what did Granny do? Most people in the country would run for the root cellar. Not Granny. No, she rolled up her sleeves, she reached up in the air, she grabbed that tornado by the small end, she started flinging it around the air like a lasso. Whoa, whoa, whoa. She wrapped that tornado around the house, picked up the house, turned it around, set it down at 180 degrees opposite direction. And went to bed and went to sleep. And when Pops woke up the next morning, the bed was still under the window, but the window did not face east anymore.
Well, that closes our first half. We're going to take a brief intermission real quick. And now, when y'all come back from intermission, which you'll know it's time to come back, when you'll hear the band going, you'll hear me talking or doing something, that means start to come back to your seats. But when you come back, if you could do us a favor, come up to the stage. Like right here, this carpeted area between the seats and the stage. I kind of want you, those of you